My name is Wilson Mendes. Actually, you can call me Will. Every time someone calls me Wilson, just reminds my mom. And it's not something bad though, but like every time that she calls me with my whole name, like Wilson Mendes Neto, I'm screwed. But yeah, today we'll talk about the progressive S.E.O guide for PWAs, like Angular focus. In that case, we were looking for a few things that we can do in our Angular world, NEG world, using Angular CLI and other technologies that we can use to improve the S.E.O of our applications or our web apps or PWAs. Just a disclaimer, we have specific roles for S.E.O, and we should focus those things. They have like more knowledge than everyone to make a website like be on the top in the search, just to make sure who knows what S.E.O means. Cool. For who don't, S.E.O is related to search. It's more like, in that really long story short, like how good you can make your code and approach that you can use to make a website be one of the first in the search, like improve the ranking when someone goes to Google and look for your web application. But because, what time is it now, right now? Like 11:10?
11:10, yeah.
Okay. I like to do just a small icebreaker. I know it's weekend, morning, so we can sing if you like. I'll try my best. I love that. Everyone, let it go! Let it go! The Voice 2019. Yeah, enough. Now we're on the same page. So first things first, as Robin said, I'm working at Atlassian. We're improving a lot of projects that we have there. So if you're using Jira, Confluence, and other stuff, spoiler alert, wait for it. Some cool stuff are coming. And during my free time, I do this. And the company's paying me. Yeah, that's good. But, and other thing that I do in my free time is like, I published this Notebots book. And for who don't know, Notebots pretty much you play with JavaScript and sensors. So if you like to play with some temperature sensors, LEDs, Arduinos, Raspberry, so on and so forth, just go to that link, decrease the price to 0, and enjoy. This book is totally free. So if you want to pay me a beer, I don't mind, but that's totally for the community. So if you want to know how to start, toolings, and how to test hardware, which is good stuff, and people usually don't talk too much about it, download it. And let's start. Web apps are evolving, and we need to be up to date with those things. What that exactly means? When we talk about web apps, like 5 years ago, PWA was not a thing. Service worker support was not that good, and few other stuff that we have as a pillar for PWAs. And since the web applications are evolving, we need to keep up to date and try to use all the HTML5 APIs and stuff that we can do to improve our applications. As an example, we have this application. Why I use this? Because it's a simulation of e-commerce. First one. Second one, it has cats. And third one, it has a cat unicorn with something even better. Cat unicorn, if you don't know, it's a mix between cat and unicorn. And we don't have price because you can buy happiness. Just to keep in mind that. What? $100. I didn't get what happened.
No, do this. I want to see your credit card details.
Yeah. Someone's trying to hack me though. Anyway, that's our application, and as you guys can see, we have performance. Here we're using a tool called Lighthouse to do some additions. So if you wanted to play with it, you can come here in the audits. You can open the DevTools, go to Audits tab, click the button, and be happy. It does all the things for you automatically. This is good stuff, and it gives you a lot of information about things that you're doing good, things that you need to improve, and how you can improve. Some good tips and tricks. And S.E.O. of this application, this example application, is in 100. Again, we are talking a code perspective. There is a lot of different ways to improve S.E.O. But since we are devs, and actually that's one of the approaches that you can find how to create web pages. A few years ago, we were talking a lot about MVC and stuff, and now we are talking about components. And if you think about components, since the beginning of the IT and development, we are talking about composition, how we can reuse things. Everything should be like plug and play. And the page container, as you can see in this example, it's a composition of components, which creates another composition of components, and so on and so forth. But at the end, in your page will be home page component, for example. Specifically for Angular, we have an idea of layout container that you can abstract all the things, which is a good one. So for example, you can have a specific route using router, outlet, and you can add your header and footer. So you can kind of create the main template using this approach. So yeah, keep in mind that everything is a component. Why everything should be a component, and why this is cool? First things first, small scope. You don't need to know about the whole world. If you go to homepage, you need to know any other information. So with that, you create boundaries. So it's good when you try to work with other teams and try to improve specific stuff. Like if you're talking about S.E.O, you need to think about how to do this piece by piece. And components are plug and play. And when I'm talking about plug and play, I'm talking about this. Other things. Even talk about Angular and how Angular can help us with that. Everyone has opinions here, right? The best way to bundle things, the best way to test, the best tooling that we can use. We can probably migrate from Mocha or Jasmine to Chest for some reason, or vice versa, and publish, link, and those stuff. Angular solved those issues for us using an approach called zero configuration. So if you go on cli.angular.io, you can download that application and be happy. At the end of the day, if you wanted to start your Angular application, you just need to do those 4 steps, which are npm install Angular CLI. After that, you already have the all CLI in your machine, so you can do ng new my application, so create a new application, and ng serve, so you can run your dev application locally. All the good stuff that you have is one called Schematics. Schematics has a lot of few helpers for you. So like if you wanted to configure like my CSS should be inside my component, so I need to use something like scoped, component scoped, so you can use the schematics, so you can create your schematics, so like can go nuts. If you're in a company and your company has specific rules, you can create schematics so you can share between teams. You can create some rules for S.E.O, for example. You can create schematics to add ESLint for few things on S.E.O, like attributes, validation, and few other information. As example here of how schematics works, we have this. When you run ng-config schematics, you can pass something and it adds this information in your package.json. We don't need to go there and write something. Angular CLI does this for us. So you can do, here we have example adding inline style and inline template. So you can create HTML like we work with Angular, you can create HTML, and in bundle time, in build time, it put all together. Other thing, retrieve data using resolver. For who don't know what resolver is, like it's a way to say the application, let's load the page just when the API call, for example, it's resolved. So I can pass the prop and I don't need to block anything in the middle of the process. So you can make things in parallel. You can use web workers for this, for example, and run in different threads. And keep doing, because if you go to a page to order, and if you need to wait for that API call, that means that like if your API call is taking 2 seconds, you're being blocked to go to the next page for 2 seconds. With Resolver, you can unblock those things. And use other stuff like skeletons to make the idea that it's something's being loaded, so the user is not like crazy because it's end up in that page and the page is like blank until the API be solved. One application that does this really well is Instagram. Like if you go to Instagram and send an image, and after that it tries to send to you that everything's fine, it shows you the skeleton, and maybe it returns that something's wrong, you need to retry again. That things like try to manipulate your mind, kind of. A way to do the item resolver, a way to do a resolver is like pretty much this. You can create a new class. You can say that should implement resolve. Resolve is an internal type from Angular. And you can say which type of resolver you should do. Or you can like create your own type. You can create a main resolver and use in different pages. Why those things are important? Because if now Google is trying to rank your application based on performance as well. So everything that you can do to make your application faster will be better ranked. So we have the constructor and we have a resolve. This thing is something important. So for example, if you go to, in an e-commerce, you go to a specific cell phone, let's say iPhone 7 or something, you pass as a parameter, a query string, you can get that ID and you can go to the API and get some information. And we can cache the API calls, which is another thing I'll talk later. And the way to integrate this resolver is like this. So really straightforward. Let me show you an example of this. Not you. Like this is our amazing e-commerce. I'm good with design. I have to say this. And when I click on, let's say, this cat unicorn, it comes here. It's almost real time. Why? Two things. One, this API call is cached. So we are not going to the API anymore after the first call, after the first render, which is cool. And we're using resolvers for this. I'll show more about code at the end. And let's keep going. Other thing that people talk a lot is like Angular Universal. Angular Universal is a way to do server-side rendering in Angular applications. So like if you need something to be exposed as HTML for every like Google and any other searches, you can use server-side render to help you on that. Or you can try to mix things like client-side and server-side. You can go nuts. Angular Universal is a way to make this thing easier, and easier like that. The way to configure using Angular CLI is really, really straightforward. The Angular team is working really well in Angular CLI to improve our workflow, which is quite nice. Before you had to download the package, configure the server locally, and do something specifically for your application. Now you don't need to do those things anymore. What you need to do is generate a universal, and -- client project is like which project I'm using, because you can use Angular CLI in multiple projects. you can specify which project you're using. After that, you can build based on production, like using production build, and run the server. Like, that's what you need to do. And when you do the steps, it creates for you a file, 3 files. One is tsconfig.server.json with all the configurations about the server side of application. Feel free to go there, open, change if you like, but it has like the defaults. Usually we don't need to change. The other one is like the main server, because now we are talking about server-side render. You need to think that now you have an Express application going to your bundles and sharing. So now when I try to look the content of a page, it's not div something goes here anymore. Like, will be all your content, like your images, links, your H1, your tags and stuff. This will be good because the crawlers can go there and get more information about your application. S.E.O. is pretty much give more information for them. And you have the app server module. If you want to add something, like specific configurations, you can go to that file and change. Other thing. Other point are like meta tags. Meta tags are like the core of one of the cores of the whole thing. Because now if you go to a website and you try to share the website on Facebook, Twitter or something, you need to pass in information for the crawlers. And those information you can pass using meta tags. That's a way to make that work in Angular. So you can create a class, like a simple class that can handle with all the main tags that you need, like meta tags or title. So when you move from a page to another one, you can have this smoothly. Like list of cell phones, iPhone 7 when you go to another page. All those informations are good. That as much information as you can give, you can provide for Google and other searchers, will be good for your application. It will be good for you. That's a simple way to add those. Add some meta tags. And a good question about that is like server side or client side. Usually when you see some docs, they're not quite clear. They're not crystal clear about what you want to do and how you can do to improve application to be like the #1 or be better ranked in the search. So how can you do that? Usually people say, oh, because we don't have enough knowledge, we don't have enough documentation, we can go to server-side render. But not really. The application I was showing you folks since the beginning, it has 100 S.E.O. in a code perspective. And that's the code. So, usually when you look in the web and try to find something related to S.E.O., they will talk to you, use server-side render because it's well proved that everything should work 100%. But at the end, it depends. As you can see, we don't have anything. Like, we have this app root, which is Angular, the main entry point for Angular. This can be a React application or any other framework or library that you want to use. But the idea is, it depends. There is no like right or wrong, black and white, as people like to sell. Few scenarios, for example, before I was working at a company called Domain, and they do like real estate. I think that everyone knows here. They were with the same idea. Okay, we need to use server-side render for those things. And when you look for documentation, we go to Google. There are a few ways to pass fragments, but they're not that clear. So let's try server-side render, and we end up doing a kind of mix. So we have few places, few pieces of the page that are server-side render, and few others that we are passing information and we are doing some client call. So you can, in some pages you can use client side, in others you can use server side. It depends. Go to that page, it's case by case, and look which one's better for you. we have few tools that we can validate if they're good enough. Another good thing, we will talk more about service workers later, so I'll just give some introduction about service workers and how you can use service workers in Angular applications. Service workers is a kind of pillar for PWAs. So, and the way that we can use Angular applications is like really straightforward. Again, ng add at Angular/PWA, and all done. You already have all set up. When you do this, it creates few files. The first one is manifest.json, so you can have some configuration about like, oh, when I open a website on my phone, I don't want to see the bar, the URL. I can change that color. I can do something else. I can do some loader. And GSW-config. This is the important piece. These are the places that you add like what do you want to cache, when do you want to cache, why do you want to cache, the time that you have for those caches, and why this is so important. Because as soon as your page is faster, which is one of the points to make like a good rank, few things that Google put as a rank: semantic, HTML semantic. So if you're using a lot of divs for nothing and they don't have any meaning, you'll be punished for that. Like you'll lose some points. Other one is how fast your page, and few others like text. Even a text that you put, some description. Depending on the way that you're doing, there is a technique that called black hat. So you can put too much things, you can be just removed from Google. It's good to keep in mind. Again, when I was talking about there are some people that work several hours on S.E.O. are in few other points like the best text, the best description for that information and how we can do. So in a tech perspective, those are the points. Come back into the presentation. No script. It will add a no script tag by default, like just to make sure that in case that something goes wrong, you have that you pass that information for the user, saying, hey, your JavaScript is not running, please enable it. So that's a no script tag. Really straightforward. And that's the NGSW config. This is the configuration that I have for a service worker. If you already play with service worker straight away, you can see that you can write a lot of code, or you need to use some package to help you on that. On the package that's really broad at the user is called Workbox. And Angular has an abstraction at the top of Workbox. So instead of write a lot of code, you can define the whole thing in a JSON. And when you run your bundle, it creates that automatically. As an example, we have resources that we can cache. Let's say everything that comes from Google APIs, like fonts, images, and other things. And you can add something like your CDN URL. If you have a specific place that you bring all your images, all your CSS, all your JavaScript, you can cache those. And you can add a timer for those. Let's say, maybe something is really crucial, so I can't cache that much. So you can put like a cache for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and keep tracking. Other point, you can cache API calls. Like, since you have like critical path is when you do the first page load. There are a few things that needs to be shown to don't impact the time to interact in the page. Time to interact is when the user goes on that website, try to click something, but it can't. It's showing, I can see that we have a search, but I can't click, I can't use until something else is loaded. The whole flow to everything be loaded and the user can do something on your website is called time to interact. And if you have an API call that's blocking this, you can use a cache for that. So service worker came like a god for that. And the trick thing is that if you wanted to create a cache, like if you want to remove a cache, create a time to live for the cache, you can easily put a max age of 1 hour. And that's it. So you can change for 10 minutes, 3 hours, be there until the end. And other point, because we are talking about data, we are talking about schemas. And every time they talk about schemas, they have some good things. Think about when you go to when you try to do something in the government, like when you came to Australia Post, try to grab a box, a package, you need to have your photo ID. I think they're working some app to do this, but all the steps. And you need to have some identification for them to make things easier. Few things that we can add as attributes, and you can validate those, are related to schema. There's a website called schema.org, so you can go there and check what schema does. What schema does is it's a well-defined list of properties that you can create, and you can pass more information for crawlers. For example, we have events, we have person, if you're using a personal profile, product, in case that you have an e-commerce, and you can put new attributes. Same as area attributes, you can put those information and you can give some benefits. And when you click one of those, you can see like a really, really, really chunk, a lot of information. So feel free to read that and use in your website. You can see some benefits. Other one is called JSON-LD, which is another way to create a schema and pass those information for Google when it tries to crawl your website. So you can put all the information like this, and there's a lot of JSON-LD and schema validation. And you can give some good points on that. The tool that I was showing, Lighthouse, if you come here, Audition. Can everyone see? Okay. So you can check, that's the way that we are doing auditions, and you can check, oh, I want to check mobile, I want to check desktop, I want to check both. And what I want to check, let's say, that moment I want to check best practice. I have another tooling to do this. And you can check, for example, I want to check like really, really old devices, like old cell phones and old computers, devices that don't have too much resources. When you click run audits, it does the whole thing. It tries to download the website. It will check how that works in a mobile perspective, because I put only mobile. It's reloading. As you can see, we have here 70% of mobile. And keep going. And yeah, slides.com is a really, really not ideal experience. There are 15 performance, 23 in progress web apps, 100 in S.E.O. It's not that fast, but it's passing a lot of information, so you can try to balance those things. And here you have like more information, like what you can do to help on that, and things that you can improve, and so on and so forth. So feel free to use this. You don't need to download anything. If you're using the latest Chrome, you already have built-in. I love GIFs. And yet, after all of this, you can even take a look at other resources, JSON-LD, schema.org, and Lighthouse. And if you wanted to play with that application that I'll show you guys, that's a resource. That's the code. So you can go there, github.com/willmendesneto/nginx universal. I will share those slides after this talk in my Twitter. So feel free to look for Will Mendes Neto Twitter. And just a recap. Zero configuration, always someone already solved our problem, so we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If you can resolve things lazily, try to resolve. funny enough, we're not even talking things specifically for SEO, we're talking even for performance and best practice. Angular Universal, use it and check when you need to use and when you need to remove it. And always think about metrics. Every time they do some change, look how is the rank of our website and keep improving. Yeah, folks, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.